Hey, it's Ronald Polius. I was a school bus driver in 2023. In 2024, I was a high school teacher, and now I am full time in real estate. It's quite crazy because the teaching salary I got was about $43,000, and it was the biggest salary I've ever gotten in my whole life. I was so excited, super stoked, but maybe just like you, I just felt this desire and need to be able to get more, provide more for my family. I knew I had skill sets and the ability to achieve more and to do more. But not only that, I just didn't find satisfaction in my high school job. If I am frank and candid, it was a tough environment. I was a first year teacher, and the leadership and support wasn't there, and then the students didn't want to be there, and so it made this pressure on me that just it was super tough. But being the resilient person I am, I made it through and just kept going at this real estate stuff. I got a check for $40,000 in August. My teaching salary is 43, so it was $3,000 shy of my teaching salary that I worked 9 months to get, and this check I only got in 3 months. And it took that long because a month and a half of it was me working the lead and going through probate. I actually did a full interview with Pace Morby on his podcast, in his podcast room, and you can find that on YouTube. It's how to leave your job on your lunch break and make $42,000 or something to that effect. You'll find it. You'll see my face. But what I want to do is do a deal walkthrough on a deal I have under contract right now that I'm actually closing this Friday. And the reason I'm wanting to do these walkthroughs is so that I could help you get tips, tricks, and different tactics that have helped me just fine tune my skill of negotiation. Because the reality is, negotiation is where you need to win. That's where you make your money. That's where you get your margin. That's where you get the deal. That's where you move the needle. You can be talking to people all day, but if you don't have the ability to close them, then you're just wasting your time. But if you get the ability to close them, then you'll make much progress. Much progress. In fact, if you're new in real estate, if you cultivate this skill of closing, you will dominate. You and what I mean by that is you can learn the skill of closing and negotiation and leave underwriting to somebody else, leave exit strategies to somebody else. If you could just get deals, all of the other parts will come together. But if you focus on this side of things, where you know how to underwrite every deal, you know how to dispo, but you can't get a contract, none of this matters. Now, for my higher end people who are not new, or they are closing deals, they are working through leads, and they have opportunities and appointments, I just want you to imagine if you cultivated and sharpened your skill of negotiation, how different would your business be if you had $15,000 more in margin? What if each deal you purchased $20,000 cheaper, $10,000 cheaper? You can see how cultivating the skill of negotiation will grow your business bigger than anything else. You could just do the same amount of deals in volume, just get those deals deeper and cheaper, and it'll be as if you boosted your business because you would have. So let's do this deal walkthrough. Not all of these videos will have that long of an intro, but I just gotta build the rocket that we're about to take off on, because if you don't see the need here, if you don't feel the pain here, then we can talk numbers all day, but it's just numbers to you. But if you realize that if you cultivate this skill of negotiation and closing, you can walk into any room and have almost any opportunity at your fingertips because you can negotiate. So let's jump right into this. I want to talk about this lead. So how I found the lead. It's one of the big questions. How I find the lead. Got somebody messaging me on Instagram today, which is at Ronald Polius, his first and last name, or Facebook actually, and they were saying, "Hey, how'd you find the lead? How'd you find the lead? How'd you find the lead?" I found this lead. It's real simple, from the county. Yeah, I went to the county website. I looked for auction foreclosure and saw this lead, and I put it on a route, and I knocked several doors. How did I turn this lead into an opportunity? So I want to distinguish lead and opportunity. Okay. Not every lead is an opportunity. Not every opportunity is a deal. Okay. These are three different things. A lead is someone who has said, I want to sell my house. If you go on Zillow, you will find hundreds, thousands of people who have said, I want to sell my house. But are those opportunities? For investors, 90% of them are not. Why? Because that lead wants to sell for the highest and best offer. We're not wanting to buy for the highest and best offer. We're wanting to buy at a discount. We want to solve pain. We want to solve problems. And in solving those problems, we get a discount. Those leads on Zillow, those leads on the MLS, there are people who are saying, I'll sell for the right price. When I just got into real estate, I was talking to someone here in my living room, and my wife was there in the background. It's time to get supper, and I'm telling my wife, hold on, this is the lead. This is the lead. He wants to sell. He wants to sell. He wants to sell. So we're talking, and I'm sending the conversation, and he says, I will sell for $1,000,000. I said, okay. I did some underwriting, and his house was worth 500,000. Is that a lead? Yeah, he wants to sell, but is it an opportunity? No, because he wants to sell for the right price. He wants to sell above market value. So I knocked this door. That was a lead. And the reason now you're making the connections. Oh, wait. You said a lead is somebody who wants to sell. You don't know if this person wants to sell. I don't. And that's why I work foreclosures, because they've not communicated. Now some of them get on Zillow and whatnot, but for all the most of the leads I work, they've not put their hands up and say I want to sell. They're not on the market, and I've not been in contact with them, so I don't know. But the reason I work foreclosures is because I realize that most foreclosure leads have the most indicators that they could and would sell. What do you mean by that, Ronald? What I mean by that is they're in foreclosure. Foreclosure, let me write this down for you. Let me get another marker. I didn't realize I had one that was fading. Foreclosure is the symptom. Okay? Foreclosure is a symptom. In conversation, you find the pain. When you have a stuffy nose, The stuffy nose isn't the problem. That's a symptom from the problem that is internal. Your body's fighting off something. You got it. You get me? So I found this. I worked these foreclosure leads because I'm going to these houses trying to have a conversation to find what the pain actually is. So I knocked this door. This person actually had just come out of their house to walk their dog. And so I show up and go through my usual spill, say, hey, I'm here to help so and so. I saw the bank was giving you problems. And I help homeowners get the bank off their backs. And in conversation, I realized quickly this guy was a yellow personality. A yellow personality is someone who likes to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And you hear their life story of why they love Doritos. Right? They're yellow. They just like to talk. They like to conversate. They're easygoing and they can sit on the porch and talk to you for 3 hours as if they have nothing else to do. And I quickly realized, okay, this guy's a yellow. So we're standing. I realized he was a yellow and I said, hey, can we sit? And I knew I had him. I knew I had him because we sat down, we got comfortable, we started talking. In conversation, I realized that this guy gave me an initial smoke screen. You want to know what the smoke screen was? I don't want to sell my house. What would you have done if you heard that? 2 years ago, I would have said, oh, okay, well, let me give you your options to keep your property. Oh, okay, well, let me continue on my door knocking. Then let me try to reach out to other homeowners that I can help. But yeah, keep my number. We can talk later. That's what I would have done 2 years ago. That's probably what you would have done now. Because how do you handle that? I don't want to sell my house. Okay. But I've come to realize in all of these conversations, that is usually a smoke screen. That's usually a there's a bunch of stuff happening back here, but I'm just going to say this so you can kind of leave me alone. I continue the conversation. And what ended up happening was I started asking situation questions, trying to find out where we're at, what's happening, what's the situation. I went on to ask problem questions. This person lost a spouse, lives in a big old house with so many rooms by himself with the dog. So I started asking, okay, so you're behind. All right, you want to keep your property. And so what I did was I took him through the biggest way to keep your property, which is a reinstatement. You pay the bank what you are defaulted on, and you keep going on with your payments. Guess what? The person didn't have close to $15,000, $16,000 to do it. Problem. Okay, so you want to keep your property, but you don't have the $17,000 to do so to reinstate it. What do you think will happen? You're gonna go to foreclosure. Okay, are you trying to rebuild? Are you trying to go to another chapter? What happens if this foreclosure goes through and it follows you for the next 7 years? That's a implication question. What am I doing there? I'm saying if this happens, there's a result of 7 years of you dealing with this. How are you going to rebuild after that? How are you going to go into your next chapter? I asked you different questions. And I quickly found that I got through the smoke screen. And yes, he did not want to sell his house, but he realized he couldn't keep it. He realized it was best that he did. And so I weighed through, I said, okay, now this opportunity it's an opportunity because now he realized he has to sell it. He doesn't want to, but he has to. So it's an opportunity. So we started talking numbers, had conversations. He bought it at this certain price. He wanted to sell it again at that same price, but it needed repairs and all these other things. So we're having this conversation, and I said, okay, what what do you feel? What do you feel would be good? What do you feel would get us going in the right direction? And he says, selling it at the price that I sold it for. And I said, ugh, I'm below that. And I gave him my anchor, I gave him my number, and we met somewhere in the middle. But the way I underwrote this deal, because remember, I just door knocked this. I didn't expect to meet him. It was not an appointment. I wasn't prepared for this. So what I did was I walked the property. I said, give me 5 minutes to underwrite this. So let's look at some numbers. So I did quick underwriting. Here's a standard formula I follow. Most investors do. And that is ARV times a percentage. Percentage of it basically represents the amount of a discount you want. I buy at 70%. Most buyers do 75. I want a little bit more margin. I want safety in case my numbers are off. I want to go down on. I just want it deeper because anything can happen, and that 5% becomes 80% real quick if I'm at 75%, and then that 80% becomes 85, and now I'm underwater. So I buy at 70%. Subtract repairs equals MAO. MAO means maximal allowable offer. So let's do this real quick. This ARV I was underwriting, I saw 270, a house. I started digging into this, and I saw 270. I was like, wow, okay, that's nice for this area. And the house was right across the street. My comp was right across the street of this house that I was currently in. Minus 36,000. Light rehab, already has a newer roof, already has a newer HVAC system. It just needed paint, new carpet, and some yard work. And so it was really light rehab. So you do the math on that. Minus 70%. Times 70% minus 360 equals 153. Okay. Do the same numbers on that. And somebody else would buy this using a 75% formula at 166. So you can see there's a $13,000 difference between what I would buy it at and what somebody else would buy it at. Now, Ronald, would you buy that 75% if it was just not, like, if that's just what that number was that he was wanting? Yes, I would, given that it's a super light rehab. If it was a much heavier rehab, like I've done a couple that have been 100,000 plus, if it was a heavier rehab like that, no, I got to stick to my numbers, because that $100,000 rehab kept creeping up because of different problems I ran into. This one is a light cosmetic one. I want to buy it at 70%, but if he was stuck at this number, I'd buy it at 75%. Now, here's a contract price. This is going to blow your mind. Here's a contract price that I got it at. This is a full deal walkthrough. I'm going to try to make the other ones shorter. But the reason I'm digging into this is because these are the things people don't show you. These are the things people don't see on the back end. You're not there in the room with me, so you don't see all of these details. So I got to fill in the cracks. I got to put in all the puzzle pieces so you can see the picture a little bit more clearly. The contract price that I have, are you ready for this? The contract price that I have is $92,500. 92,250. Do the math on that real quick. So 153 minus 92,250, $60,000 of difference. And if it was somebody else, that'd be a $73,000 difference. That was through negotiations. That's how I got this deal that deep. So I quickly went through Dispo. Dispo is how I'm going to sell the deal. What's my exit strategy? Am I going to keep it as a rental? Am I going to fix and flip? Am I going to double close? So what I did was I said, okay, let me see if I can flip this, because 270 times, we do times 70%, because I want to allocate at least 15% for holding costs, selling on the back end, paying my agents. Then I want to have 15% for profit. So if I fix and flip this, I am at least wanting $40,000 in profit. Well, you already see I have a $60K difference on this. So I would have made $100K in profit if I went the fix and flip route. Now, that would have taken 36K rehab. That'd be probably 3 weeks, but you'd push it a little bit because of unknowns, and you'll probably run into a 5-week rehab. And then you list it, get an offer in a month or so. So in about 3 months, I could have made 100K rehab, which is double my teaching salary. Well, 2.5 my teaching salary. Ronald, why didn't you go that route? You've already got that I've been implying I didn't. Well, I started to dig, and I sent this deal to my lender. Guys, here's another tip. Here's another hack. Your lender, if you have a good lender, your lender is another set of eyes. Your lender is another person that is able to let you know, yeah, that's a great deal. Or, ooh, that's not a good deal. That's not in a good pocket. So I sent it to my lender. I said, hey, I see an ARV of 270. I got it under contract for 92. I'm doing a rehab for 36. He's like, man, this looks good initially. So he gets to digging, and he said, ooh, that one comp you have is a one-off comp. I would not depend on that being a comp. There are other houses in the area that are not selling, and they've been on market 2-3 months. Now, my rehab would be a lot better than those other houses that are still on market, but you gotta factor those in when you're underwriting a fix and flip, because your project can stay on market for 2 months. It can. And so I said, ooh, okay, what do you think ARV is? He said he thinks ARV is 225. Okay. I said, oh man. So let's do the math on 225 real quick. Times 70% minus 36,000. You can see I'm still 90. So 121 is that answer. I'm still 30K under that ARV. So let's do all the math real quick. 22 5 times 15% for profit plus what I'd say. Was it 30K? Okay. Plus 30K. So I could still make 60K on this. I could still make 60K on this in 3 months. If everything goes right. Why didn't you? Because I said, let me see if I can dispo this to another fix and flipper that I've built connections with in the area that I know buys at 80%. So he buys 10% higher than I do. Okay? So I I said, okay. I sent it to a couple people, and one person came back to me and said, "Ugh, man, I would have to be at about like 121." One person told me 121. So let's do 121 minus 92.5. That's 28K. That's solid for a double close. That's solid for an assignment because the average assignment is 12K. So I'm 2 times above the average assignment. I said, okay, let me hear back from some other people. So I sent it to my 80% guy, and I sent him this 270 comp. The first person I sent it to, he said the same thing. I don't trust that comp. I got to go somewhere else. I sent it to this 80% guy. He loved the comp. Loved the comp. I sent it to him to sell at 180, and he countered me at 175. 175. So let's do 175 minus 92. That's what I was going to be making on this deal. 80, that's double my teaching salary. That would have been the largest wholesale fee I've ever gotten. But you know what happened? I got him on the contract. He's buying this deal. I'm double closing, meaning he's not going to see the number I'm making. It's blind to him and it's blind to the seller. He only will find out after he sees in a month what I made by checking the county or looking at this video. But we walked the property, and he actually had another partner. So he bought a partner in. And his partner said, "Ooh, I don't like I see that comp right across the street at 270, but there's a few things different from that comp to this house that I don't think we're gonna get 270." So he tried to get me to come down $25,000. I said, "Ooh, man, 25K. Let's meet in the middle." And we settled at 160. So I sold it. I sent it to other buyers at I think it was 180. He countered at 175 initially. So the initial counter was 175. So he got me down. No, I sent it for 181. So he got me down 6K the first time. I was like, okay. I mean, I'm still making $82,000 at this point. But you don't want them, you want them to feel like they fought for it. And they did. 6K. Okay. We did a walkthrough, and he tried to get me down to 150. Said, ooh, can we meet in the middle? Let's do 162, 225, 250. He said, ooh, let's do 160. And I said, okay, let's do it. So I came down to 160. So I came down 15K. He came up 10K. But guys, let's do 160 minus 92. I'm still walking away with $67,000, 750 off of a door knock. We had a 1-hour conversation, got the seller on the contract. I found out he was working with another buyer, another investor for a month. A month. But what I was able to do was I got through the smokescreen. The other buyer, he was unequipped to get through the smokescreen. You know what he was sending the guy text of? He got a third-party authorization so he can talk to the bank, so he can get the reinstatement, so he can help the seller keep the house. Like, here's what you need. He didn't ask questions like, Do you even have $6,000 or $16,000 to pay the bank? You live in this house by yourself. Are you wanting to stay here long term? He didn't ask questions. He didn't ask implication questions. He just assumed, oh, smokescreen, and he fell for it. Oh, he wants to keep his house. Let's work with him for a month. And then maybe in 3 months, he'll finally come to realize that he can't keep his house. Guys, in 1 hour of conversation, I got through the smokescreen. I found his pain. I found a way I can help him. I'm paying for his moving. I'm paying the closing costs. This guy works a full-time job. I'm giving him, I'm making the service for him just seamless. And that's because I was able to cultivate skills that helped me ask the right questions, that helped me detect smoke screens to get through them so I can make a $67,000. That's the biggest check I've ever gotten. Ever gotten. And that's because I put in the work. If you are at a place where you're saying, man, I could really get some skills of negotiating, I could really cultivate them, I just need to know what they are. Like, what questions are you asking, Ronald? I'm happy to give you a walkthrough and breakdown and just focus a little bit more. I'm working towards building something to help people like you, serve people like you. Just to be candid, I'm not quite sure what that looks like yet, but I'm realizing me from 2 years ago would have benefited from a breakdown like this because there are so many puzzle pieces you don't get in one place. You get it here, you get it there, you get it here, you hear a little bit there. But I would love to create something that just has all those pieces there on the table. You can make a full puzzle and you can see what that picture looks like, and then you can go looking for something that reflects that picture. And so push forward. Follow me on Instagram, Ronald Paulius. Stay in tune with my YouTube videos. I'm going to be dishing out a lot more content. This is kind of the first one, and it's pretty long, but that's because so many pieces went into this. The reality is, I got this under contract for 1 hour, in 1 hour, but it took me 2 years to build these skills. Is this video worth listening to? If you can make $67,000, it would have been for me 2 years ago, and that's why I created this. And so comment something that stood out to you, comment something that stood out to you, and then comment something that you need clarity on, that you caught and you're like, wait, can you go deeper into that? And I'll see if I can cater videos to serving and helping in that way. So subscribe and stay in tune for the next video. Let's be owners.